I'm Bob Hesse, and I've prepared a series of lessons on how to tie the parachute dry fly, in this case specifically the Quill Gordon parachute dry fly. The Quill Gordon is one of the early season mayflies here in Pennsylvania. We start to see it mid-April to beginning of May, and it's one of our favorite hatches. I like to imitate it with a parachute dry fly. Number of reasons. The parachute dry fly is a good floater, it's very durable, it sits low in the water like a mayfly and has a great profile. I prefer it to the traditional dry fly because it's a little more durable and I think it's a little more realistic, and I also prefer it over the Paradun for the same reasons. Better profile and just a generally more realistic appearance. Now I've prepared the lesson in 4 segments. The first is this, the introduction. Then I'll be doing one on putting on the micro-fibbet split tails, putting on the deer hair wing post, and finally the dubbing and attaching the hackle and finishing the fly. I've done it in different episodes just to make it a little easier to grasp and to be able to present it in higher resolution on YouTube. In this first introduction, I'm going to show you the materials, I'm going to show you the tools that you need, and then I'm going to do a brief demonstration of what's called the thumb and forefinger pinch. If you know how to do that, you can skip that part, but for those of you who haven't learned the thumb and forefinger pinch, you really need that technique to attach the materials to the hook. So why don't you come over here to the desk and I'll show you the materials and I'll show you the tools that you need to tie the fly, and then we'll do that little demonstration. Here are the materials that you need to tie this fly. Number 1 is the thread. In this case we're using Uni-Thread 8/0 in gray. For the tail, micro-fibbets in dark dun. For the wing post, coastal or northern deer hair, dark gray with nice pointed tips. For the body, beaver, gray beaver dubbing. It's really a tannish gray color. Sheared beaver, which is nice, ties very finely, gives you a nice slender body. And then our hackles, dark gray dun. In this case, this is a number 3 neck. You don't need a great neck for this pattern. And here are the tools that you need. Again, your gray thread, you need a bobbin for the thread. You'll be needing a pair of scissors, sharp pointed scissors, a straight razor blade, a half hitch tool, a deer hair stacker, a bodkin, and hackle pliers. In this case I have a set of parachute hackle pliers, but you can use regular hackle pliers as well. You'll also need a fly tying vise. So that's it for the tools. The reason that this fly is called a parachute dry fly is that the hackle is tied in parallel to the hook shanks instead of at right angles to the hook shank as with a traditional dry fly. Now if I turn this fly over, you get a better view of that, and you can see the hackles are twisted around the deer hair wing post. Now here's another view of the same fly, and I'm holding that directly with the bottom facing the camera so you can see that hackle spread out to the sides. And the nice thing about this fly is, since the hackle is parallel to the hook shank and parallel to the water, it floats right down in the surface film, more like a real mayfly does. And that nice vertical wing post gives you a nice profile. It's easy for the trout to see, and it looks like a mayfly. So now I'm going to show you the thumb and forefinger pinch. Finger pinch is a very basic technique for fly tyers, and we use it to attach material to the top of the hook. So we'll begin here by tying in our thread, and then we'll take our straight razor to cut off the edge here. Now I'm going to use a piece of fly line because it's nice, easy to see, to demonstrate this. Normally you attach the fly line to the leader, which attaches to the fly, but in this case we're going to attach the fly line directly to the fly. Pinch the material between your thumb and your forefinger and place the material on top of the hook with your thumb and forefinger covering the tie-in point. Take your thread up. behind your thumb and in front of the hook, and then down behind the hook and in front of your forefinger. Pull down slowly and tighten up. Then do the same thing again. Each time you're leaving slack between your thumb and forefinger, and then you're pulling down tightly again. In front of the hook, behind the hook, and down. And there you see, material is right, on top of the hook. If that happens, just bring it right back up again like that. Now the fly line's a little big and slippery, so it's a little hard to tie in. But I think you're getting the idea here. I'll just turn that sideways so you can see the material sitting right on top of the hook. Now I'm going to do that one more time. This time I'll use a little more pressure. We'll see if it stays up there a little better. So we pinch it between our thumb and forefinger, bring the thread up in front of the hook, and then down behind the hook, and then apply pressure. In front of the hook, and down behind the hook, in front of the hook, and down behind the hook. Then a couple of winds to hold it on, and there you go. Now if this was your material for your tail, you've got your tail right on top of the hook, parallel to the hook, so it's going to come right out the back of the hook where it's supposed to. If this were your wing post coming from the front here, it's sitting right up in top, and when you bring it up to the vertical position and wrap it into position there, it'll be sitting right on top of the hook. If we were tying a woolly bugger, for example, this would be our marabou coming out the back of the hook. We'd also tie in our chenille in the same manner. So it's a very useful technique, and once you've learned it, you'll use it on almost every fly that you tie. So if you don't know this technique, I suggest you practice with a piece of fly line or a little piece of marabou or something until you get the hang of it, and then you can go on to tying the fly. And so now that's the end of this first installment. The next installment, part 1, is attaching the split micro-fibbet tail. For a material list and for information on other patterns, please visit my website, macflyfishing.com. And stay tuned to YouTube for the next chapter of how to tie a Quill Gordon parachute.